Cool. We have the owners, the founders of Clear Sky Title and City Standard Data. So I want to have some questions for you guys for aspiring entrepreneurs. So, what advice would you give to people who aspire to be an entrepreneur one day or their early stages in their entrepreneurial journey?
I think one thing that helped me out a lot, and I feel like I wish I had done it more, was to find a mentor. I think having the right community of people around you that are already doing the things that you want to do, and they're the kind of people that have businesses that you want to aspire to have. I think that's super powerful. Most likely, they've gone through a lot of the same challenges that you're going through right now, or you're about to go through. And on top of that, I think one thing early on uh, I felt shy about it because I was like, oh, why would these people want to help me or give me their time? But I think as we're a little bit more established, I think when people come up to me and ask me these same questions or ask for advice, we're more than happy to give it because you empathize with them, and you wish that there are people that like that to help us when we first started. So I think that's something that's definitely undervalued, and people should definitely take advantage of that.
I think my answer is a lot more boring and probably a lot less sexy than that. Is
I didn't
I
know mine
think
was sexy.
maybe not. I think every entrepreneur thinks that they want to do things differently, and they think that when they have their own business, they don't have to do this or they don't want to have to do that. Um, but I think what I've learned over the last X number of years is that there are certain basics that need to be done and need to be focused on and need to be built out. And the more you try to run away from those basics and feel like you don't have to do those basics, and those basics are making sure that your finances are okay, making sure that you have good operations, make sure that you have good people, make sure that you have good strategy and good vision. The more you try to run away or neglect some of those things, the harder it will be for you to scale. And everyone comes full circle back to those four important Vern Harnish scaling up elements. So I wish I had been a little bit less arrogant into thinking that I didn't have to do those things earlier
Huh.
on, and started building that foundation. And you can always have that creativity in the way that you lead people, in the way that you articulate your vision, in the way that in the product that you're selling or the service that you're providing. That's where you should implement the creativity.
Okay, that's helpful. This might be a weird question, but the abstract industry and the title industry, I wouldn't call it necessarily sexy. So how do you make it like that an industry that is like that more interesting or more appealing to people?
I don't think it's inherently unsexy. I think the name doesn't do it much justice.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, the title industry helps people to buy homes,
Yeah.
and that's such an important part of the American dream, such an important part of you know uh, a growing family, um, or it's such a big part of each individual's personal wealth that it's hard to not think about what the ultimate purpose, what you're a part of, the bigger picture that you're a part of. Um, I also think, like I said before, is just because what you do on a day to day isn't really that sexy. It's the way that you do it that
Mm.
where you can inject creativity. It's the way that you market. It's the way that you treat your clients, and those things are very universal. And that when you think about those things, there's not one thing that's more sexy or one industry that's more sexy or less sexy than another.
Awesome.
Just to add to his, I feel like for us, finding that, I feel like this theme that we're trying to insert more this year is authenticity. I
Mm.
think no matter what the industry is, if you can bring somehow a little bit of your personality, your flavor, things you're interested in, your passion into that industry, and let that show a little bit more, you can make any industry, whatever business, a little bit more interesting.
Awesome. And why did you guys decide to start the business? We'll start with City Standard first, and then go to Clear Size.
Um, I think it was just, you know, I feel like I had the entrepreneurial bug from early, even in college, before my first job, it and then I think one of the benefits of joining a smaller business is that very early on I felt like, oh, I could do this better, or I could do that better. And then probably the final straw for me was bringing some of those ideas to some of the owners of the company, not getting I guess properly recognized for things. And then I guess the final straw for me was, I wanted to be a bigger part of that company, and I realized that there was going to be a ceiling for me there.
I don't know if I started out with a very clear intention to be an entrepreneur or, to own my own company. I think for me, it is just this level of just this element of wanting to be creative, wanting to not be captured by the same old way of doing things. A place where I felt like my decisions or my vision could actually be heard and to make an impact on the direction of the company. And I don't think I really discovered that those are the things I wanted or those are things I'm passionate about until a little bit later into that journey. And when I started discovering, oh, this is what I do like, this is what I don't like. So I'm not, I don't know if I started with my why. I started with just kind of going with the flow, and then, over time finding my why.
So cool, thank you. And this is more like, how do you go about thinking it? Like, both of you are really good at certain things, right? How do you go about like delegating things that you probably are really, really good at, but maybe you have team members that are learning and trying to get better at that skill?
I think I struggled with delegating really early on. I think I struggled with delegating for a very long time, actually. And I think it's just a feeling of trust, and I had to be forced into delegating. I had to take on so much and get to a point where I was doing too much that I couldn't do a good job anymore, and I needed to delegate in order to start looking at and working on different things. And that was wrong. Now that I'm a better delegator, I'm better for it. I've learned that I'm actually not the best at doing everything. In fact, I'm the best at doing very few things. And that took a long time to trust other people enough to learn that lesson.
Thank you.
I think I had an easier time delegating, and I think there's a book, a popular book, E-Myth, that puts it really well. People that are really, really good at a lot of things have the most trouble delegating. People that are not so good at things, myself included, there's a lot of things I'm not particularly good at. It's easier for me to delegate because the other person I delegate to has a higher chance of doing a even better job than me. So that trust issue isn't as big of an issue. But then over time, I've realized, as a business owner, I feel like one of the luxuries that you might have sometimes is delegating things that you particularly dislike doing. I think that's pretty important. If it's something that you have to do day in and day out and you dislike it, not only will you probably do not a great job at it, but also you'll hate it, and that will show. So I think the faster you can delegate those things, that's a good thing. And then obviously things that you're really into, if you can, those are probably things that you're actually good at. You should try to do a little bit more of those things.
And this is more question for you, Victor Ng, but how do you think about like business development and partnerships in general? Clearly, you're really good at that. Like, how do you think more strategically instead of like working on things that might not yield like bigger potential more upside?
Sure. I mean, I think these days, that's the answer that has evolved a lot for me over time. I think right now, it matters a lot to me the people that I meet and their personalities. I think that vibe, I don't know how that just chemistry matters a lot. I think beyond that, of course, is that partner going to be someone that is going to work hard, as hard as me? We're going to be able to balance each other. I feel like that's really important. But I think the initial vibe and whether or not this is someone I would like to be around a lot, that matters and makes a big difference, I think.
And a question for you, Victor Liu. How do you go about like thinking about operationalizing the business and standardizing things so that it's easy to train someone and to scale more effectively?
I think it's always a delicate balance of trying to standardize everything, particularly in our business where you're working with a lot of different personalities, a lot of different people on every transaction. It's hard to say, hey, this is the flow that everything's going to go in, because oftentimes that flow gets disrupted, and not everyone is going to behave in the same way. So I think there's things that you should standardize, and there are guidelines that you should put out, and we're learning the hard lessons that documentation is really, really valuable. And to try to go back and try to document things, it's a really, really tall order. It's a very big task. But at the same time, having really strong core values and kind of explaining what those core values represent and what they mean, they'll help to inform all these gray area decisions. And there are more gray area decisions than we would normally think that there are. So I don't strive to document everything. I don't strive to standardize everything. I think the things that my philosophy is, the things that should be standardized are things that are either being done all the time or things that are being done almost never, right? Because in those rare instances, you don't want to keep that garbage information in your head that you don't need all the time. So those esoteric situations are something that you can reference, kind of like that rare word that you look up in the dictionary, and even though you've looked it up 5 times in your life, you still go back to the dictionary and look it up because you don't really need to use that word or remember that word. You don't see that word all the time.
Awesome. So that segues nicely into the next question, which is, how do you go about thinking about core values? And so it's not just words on the wall, but actually like every employee amplifies it and actually internalizes it.
So we're on our second iteration of our core values. So I think accepting that it's a work in progress and it's a living document is important. And we've learned that we shouldn't be too married to certain core values. I think about all the difficult decisions that we've made over time, and in thinking about those challenging decisions, what were the guiding principles to help us make the right decision or make the decision that we made? What are the concepts or the thoughts or philosophies that inform those decisions? Help me to determine which core values are actually helpful and actually serve me and our business in making those decisions. Whereas our old core values, I realized I did not, the core values that we get rid of, we realized that those did not actually help us to make, they weren't very helpful in making difficult decisions. And so they weren't guiding principles for us.
I think one other thing that helped us with our core value decision making, what was going to be big enough and important for us to put on a wall and put into our guidebook or handbook. I think part of it, we start off with people that we felt like within our company really embodied what it means to be clear skies. And I tried to break that down and try to find commonalities between other people in this company. But I think just as important was there are people that have joined us that we felt like they're great in certain areas, but there are certain things that made them either not leave voluntarily, involuntarily. Finding the things that make someone not a fit here is also equally as important. And then finally, I think what was really important for us for these core values is to be able to attach some kind of story into each one. I think that helps us not only bring it to life, but also remember it.
Awesome. And last question is, like, what advice would you give to people who are just starting off or has like a side business, right? Like they're afraid of taking that next step of quitting their full-time job and doubling down on their actual business, what they're actually passionate about.
I don't know if this is good advice. I think entrepreneurship seems sexy from the outside, and I wouldn't do anything differently for my own life. But at the same time, I don't think it's as easy as people make it seem or people visualize. It's a little bit of the grass is greener kind of situation. And I don't know if everyone has the wherewithal to do it. And just because you think you're going to have better hours, or you think you're going to make more money, or you think you think that you don't want to be bossed around by somebody else. Sometimes I miss, I miss the thought of, I wish somebody would tell me what to do.
Really?
So I don't know if everyone should be an entrepreneur. I think you have to think about, you really have to spend some time thinking about, is my product or service actually going to be better than the competitors that I'm trying to compete with? Do I like doing all the dirty stuff or all the distasteful stuff that I may have to do? Am I willing to put in the work of kind of doing the things that I don't think I want to do anymore? I think those are really important things to go in with eyes wide open. And I think that's really important.
Wow, that's good. That's good advice. That's like not everyone's saying that too.
Yeah, honestly, I was going to echo that. I think recently on TV or on an interview, they interviewed the CEO of, I think it was Nvidia, and he was saying, someone asked him the same question. What advice do you give to people that aspire to be entrepreneurs? And he said, don't do it. And I think people, I read some of the comments from people about it, and people crapped on him for it. They're like, this guy is like obviously super successful, billionaire, multi-billionaire. That he can say this. But I think there's some truth to that. It can be super draining and hard. The grass is always greener. I think people, especially people that are thinking about quitting their job, the reason why they want to start a business is because they hate their job. I think that's probably a pretty bad reason to try to become an entrepreneur. But obviously, if there's you have some kind of passion, you see some kind of edge, then I encourage people to try.
Awesome. Thank you guys. This is going to be awesome. I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy this content. And I'll put your links below. Any last minute words? Or what is a quote that you aspire to live by? Maybe each of you.
I don't know if I have a quote.
I feel like I used to have a lot more of those.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a quote.
Victor?
Oh no. Cut this part out.
Okay.